Yo guys. It is Old Man G here, back again for another live stream. I'm joined again by the amazing Tom the journalist, and obviously a lot of news over today. Obviously, Leny Yoro. I mean, we'll obviously talk a lot about that because I'm still amazed that Manchester United were able to get one over Real Madrid. We'll get into that, and hopefully Tom will give us a bit more information as to how that happened. We'll also talk a bit about if there's any still hope for LIGT. Maybe LIGT is still an option. Obviously, Greenwood to Marseille seems to be set. And, any other sorts of news I'm hearing stuff around about, for example, Wan-Bissaka going to West Ham, for example. So we'll get into that as well. But if you're new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter at WE United X and smash the notification button. Base Manchester United news. First and foremost, Tom, buddy, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm not doing bad, Jay. Yeah, I hope yourself's doing well, and everybody who's tuning in as well. And yeah, don't forget to hit the like button, guys. Subscribe as always. And yeah, we'll deep dive into more of the details behind all of the news that's broken out, and I'll try and answer them as best as I can.
Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you so much for you're just your third. It goes Ornstein, Fabrizio, and then Tom the journalist. That's the order of reliability in the Manchester United community, to be honest. So because and I'm saying you're clear of the likes of Luckhurst and et al. Okay, so because some of those guys have proved to be a couple of thoughts recently. And big up to everyone in the chat as well. Everyone covers it. The LIGT still on. We'll talk about that. Yeah, and Braithwaite. Sisters, can you guys tell me how are we linked to Adam Wharton? Looks like a very good player. I don't really hear any reports about that, but maybe we could talk about that later, Sid. Let's hit the like button for anything. Exactly. Please hit the like button, subscribe, guys. Please. Bigger artist and Tom. Adrian Rabiot going to United again. I haven't really heard much about that, but we can maybe deal with that later. And then because United need 2 or 3 if they just get low and he's injured, back to square one with one slow season. And then we'll talk about that as well, I guess. So as everyone can see, obviously this has been making rounds the whole day. Fabrizio obviously gave the here we go a few hours back, but saying Leny Yoro to Manchester United. Here we go, deal in place after first part medical completed. More tests to follow. Then he's ready to sign a 5-year deal, valid until June 2029. Lille have all documents set for deal worth 50 million plus several add-ons. Now, I want to emphasize this because I'm seeing a lot of people, more so rival fans, saying it was 70 million. It's not. From what I gather, it's 50 million and then around about 12 million pounds worth of add-ons in terms of euro, which if you're in Britain, equivalent to pounds, that's probably about 50 in total, about 52 million pounds sterling if you include the add-ons. But most people just focus on the actual value, which is the fact that it's probably like about 42 million pounds for the defender, which I think is good business. So Tom, could you kind of like give us an idea? Because obviously I think for a lot of United fans, I think even myself included, this came out of the blue, not because we weren't linked to it, not because we weren't trying to the ownership, but just the fact that United were just able to just sort of get the best out of Madrid, and obviously he chose United. Can you tell us a bit more about like how this whole process kind of came to an end?
Yeah, well, in terms of the player himself, we've always had this discussion about where is his head at. Is it with Real Madrid or is it with Manchester United? Now, the difference was 2 months ago, Real Madrid had contacted Lille to make their interest known about Leny Yoro. They actually met his family, they'd met his agent personally to discuss terms of how they want to try and sign him in the future. They came up with they came up with this strategy plan. It's very similar to what they've done with Kylian Mbappe, or what they tried to do in the first time with Kylian Mbappe, which was, you've got 12 months on your contract coming up. We'll try and put a decent bid in for you, which Madrid did in that time for Mbappe. I think they made a record bid of around over 100 million euros, and PSG didn't bat an eyelid to it, and they rejected it completely out of hand because they were wanting a lot more money than that at the time, even though he had 12 months left in his contract. PSG ended up convincing him to stay anyway. The difference with Leny Yoro was Real Madrid didn't put that bid in for him to the level of the extent that they tried to get Mbappe a lot sooner than they did in the end. Leny Yoro and his agent, his idea was that Real Madrid is the dream super club. That's the team that I think a lot of people right now, if you look at European football, of whatever age you're at, if you're, an experienced player at 30 years old or you're a young player at 16, 17 years old, if Real Madrid come knocking, you're doing something right, or you've got to at least speak to them. And the way that it was put forward to his camp and his agent was, if you sit there, we will try and agree a fee, but if we can't agree a fee, we want you 100%. We believe you will be a top player in the future. We want you to come to us in 12 months' time, but in 5 months' time, in January, we'll negotiate a pre-contract agreement. We'll put our money where our mouth is. We'll give you all the terms of the agreement and just sign on the dotted line, and you'll join us next summer if we can't get a new agreement in place for you. But further so, you get a year to develop further as a player in France, and it will almost be a lot more easier if you come in maybe when you're 19 years old than 18 years old, because you will have a bit more first-team experience in Europe in particular. That was Real Madrid's plan. Now, the strategy from Manchester United coming into this was they have built a very good relationship. Well, in particular, anyway, Dan Ashworth's built a very good relationship with the president of Lille. And Omar Barada's had a very good hand in this in terms of negotiating the structured payments. So the way the deal will work is, like people are saying, it rounds up to 70 million euros. It doesn't go as far as that. As far as I'm aware, it goes around to 62 million pounds. However, the deal's structured in 3 installments over 4 years. So they pay over 4-year payments, but they only have to pay three times, effectively, to round the whole figure up. So they're not blowing 60 million pounds on an 18-year-old right now. They're spanning it over the long-term plan, kind of like what they did with Xerxes, where they paid a little bit more, but it meant that they could open the plan to, say, another year. So you might pay 4 or 5 million more than what you might do, but it means that you can pay it over a longer period, which works better out for Manchester United because they can still move for players. So the difference with the Euro deal right now is that effectively Manchester United went to Lille directly and they said, we want to negotiate terms for Leny Yoro. Lille gave their asking price of around about 60 million euros. Manchester United have agreed to pay, they originally agreed to pay 55 million euros, but then they've added it all up to around about 58 million euros in that ballpark figure. The terms of it are obviously going to come out a little bit later on because of how I say in terms of the instalment payments. I don't know how much United are going to pay year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on. So as soon as that gets finalised and everything, I'll have an official number over it. But the number that I was hearing was around about 55 million euros. So the way that it had worked is United had already agreed the deal with the agents, with the president of Lille. They then, upon agreeing the terms with Lille, insisted, can we speak to Leny Yoro? Can you make that connection with us so we can speak to his camp? Do you give us authority to do so? They gave them the privilege and authority to do so. They've gone to Leny Yoro and they've put the cards on the table and said, effectively, they've manipulated Real Madrid in the case of saying, they don't believe in you. We believe in you. We've put 60 million, 55 million euros down, 60 million euros down. We believe in you, Lenny. We want you to come now. If Real Madrid believed in you, they paid 70 million pounds for Jude Bellingham in June last summer, and they didn't. And they got him in there, and he was a young player, very much how you are right now. So they don't have faith in you. And who's to say in 12 months' time or in 5 months' time, they'll give you that contract that they're saying about. Gentleman's agreement in football means nothing. And an agent in football terms will understand that meaning of how Manchester United meant that a gentleman's agreement means nothing in football, because I'm sure Leny Yoro's agent, in that case, has dealt with football clubs who give agreements, say that they're going to do things, and they go back on their word. So it plays into the cards of it. Manchester United with this deal, they've been very smart, they've been very calculated, but the difference is they've gone about it in the right way. They haven't acted as if they are a super club in this way by coming in like Real Madrid did and say, in 12 months' time, I don't want to pay the money that your club are wanting, but in 12 months' time you can sign for us because we're Real Madrid. Manchester United have gone in there, they've acted like gentlemen, and they've effectively said, listen, this is our cards on the table. We'll give you upwards of £100,000 a week, which fits into that £200,000 wage structure we said about last stream that we talked about. He also fits into the model of that he will sign a 5-year contract plus 1 year. So effectively, you get 6 years out of him. And he's 18 years old now. So by the age of 24, you'll see what kind of a player he is by then. And then at the end of it, he might sign on again and you might get more money out of him in terms of what he gives you on the pitch. But then you will offer him more money over maybe the 200 cap if he proves to be the player that he should be. So the way United have done it is effectively they put themselves on the map in European football to say we can tip to get the best top talents in football, and we don't just need to rely on our name to do it. We have a plan, we have a strategy, and we have a project that players are wanting to buy into. And when you take that Serie A's top talent or youngest player of the year in Joshua Zirkzee has just signed for Manchester United and has bought onto the project. You then take Leny Yoro, who had this dream of Real Madrid because it was in his ear, they'd spoken to him for months, but they didn't put the money where the mouth is in the end. Man United have been able to convince him to come to them, rather in terms of it, because of what they've sold him as the plan and the project for the future. And you can't make the argument to say United have just thrown money at the kid, because Real Madrid were offering they were offering pretty much similar terms to what United are offering right now. In terms of a contract, he would have signed the contract with Madrid. They just couldn't agree a fee. Whereas United have done the opposite and they've agreed the fee, and it's all gone plain sailing and smoothing. So effectively, the kid's made his decision. His agency's had a very good hand in it, but also his family, as far as I'm aware anyway, his mother and father have been very constructive towards Manchester United's representatives based upon how they've actually worded things to him to say, we believe in you, we want you, we put the money where our mouth is, we've agreed everything, we've even give you the terms that you would want, probably more so than what you might have even expected, even what Real Madrid might have given you. All you have to do is say yes. They've done everything for him. And his family are very privileged in the way that United have handled it. They've not put pressure on him. They gave him enough time to decide amongst it. And he's decided to join Manchester United. And then from there, he's flew in for a medical today to Manchester with his family. He's completed part of a medical. He is currently going to participate in the Olympics in France, in Paris. So it's a short flight from Paris to Manchester, complete a portion of the medical. And then following on later on, after they do further medical tests, he'll sign a 5 + 1 year contract. Job done, deal sorted.
Thanks for that, Tom. And like you said, I'll get you to your comments, guys, and in the chat in a second. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, I was, because this is my thoughts, one just like we took Broad Asher, moving back to United, acting like a big club, and it's almost like, I think that's why I was so shocked, because it was kind of like, not only is it doing deals, obviously soon, not leaving it till last minute deadline day, trying to run around, but doing deals intelligently, where I don't know with if it was Ed Woodworth or Richard Arnold or whatever doing their thing, whether something like this would have even happened, or whether they would have thought, oh no, Real Madrid he's interested in this player, we're just not going to bother him, we'll just go and pursue the third or fourth choice, an expensive British defender for £80 million or something along those lines. I'll go to get some questions, but let me just quickly some in the chat. So I know FPP would discuss the I have seen a lot of salty fans. I actually don't know why. I genuinely don't know why. I can only assume it's because they know that United have purchased a potentially good player. Because weirdly, I saw a lot of no one really was salty for Zirkzee. I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But with Leny Yoro, everyone seems to have come out and said, "Oh, why would he play for a bum club like United?"
Yeah. I'll say this more on the point to what maybe people are saying on Twitter and stuff. There was 4 big clubs that were in for this kid and they've looked at him for the last couple of weeks. In particular, those were Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid, and Manchester United. Real Madrid was always that club that had made it commonly clear to the kid. They'd spoken to him personally and everything. They just couldn't agree the fee. When Liverpool and PSG saw how big of an attraction this kid saw with Real Madrid, they didn't speak to him personally. They heard it through the football world. They didn't stump up the money to buy the kid. And the club that was in his ear to do so in Real Madrid didn't stump up the money to buy the kid. The difference is Manchester United, who was one of those 4 clubs, spoke to his family personally, dealt with it like gentlemen. They paid the money that Lille wanted and agreed the fee, and they've also given the kid and sold him the project. That's the way that you have to prescribe it. Liverpool, if they wanted to play that badly, they'd put the money on the table. PSG, if they wanted to play that badly, they put the money on the table. These clubs, they're not broke. They've got money if they want to buy players. So when people want to maybe make out as if it's a real trick of, well, the kid wanted to go to Real Madrid, but, he's just going to Manchester United for the money. He's 18 years old. He's going to sign a contract worth £100,000 a week. And he gets a £1.7 million bonus at the end of every year should he meet set targets. For an 18-year-old who's potentially going to be one of the top players for the future, it's a very good deal to do. And when you can compete, the one thing that I think Man United fans in the last couple of years have debated is we don't compete with the big clubs for players, or when we do, we get bullied. We don't know what we're doing. We can't negotiate. The difference is with Man United, you don't hear this where United put in one bid, it gets rejected, and then a second bid, it gets rejected. A third bid, it gets rejected. And I know with the Brentford deal, that's the way that they're doing it, but that's the way that Everton have made it be like that. They want just to put bids in and try and get to their number. With Lille, it's been, no, we'll discuss properly how we'll structure the deal. We'll do payment structures, not a problem. So at the end of the day, the kid's made his decision. His agencies had a hand in that, in saying, well, what Manchester United are saying is right. He's took the proper advice from a football expert who negotiates his deal for him, and his family like the way that United have conducted it for him. So at the end of the day, I think the bigger thing in football nowadays is if you have a personal connection, like if you have a family's blessing to sign their player, especially when they're this young, from Europe, where he's coming to a league that he's not known to, he's coming to a country that he doesn't know. As far as I'm aware, he speaks very eloquent English. He's not fluent, but he speaks enough of it to know what's what. And at the end of the day, he's coming out of his comfort zone to come to a different project. He would have had to have done the exact same thing to go to Real Madrid.
That's fair. I think that's fair, Tom. What's also FB says Madrid are done. Okay, just because they got Mbappe for free and get every player for free was never leaving the open. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens. I do think from the Madrid point of view that I think this. I don't say this is going to hurt, but I think there's an element because they have centre back wise. Obviously, they have really good Militao. Obviously, Militao was out with quite a bit of an injury, so there is that. I know they've got an up and coming youth prospect, and obviously they've got Alaba. So they don't have the depth at centre back that you'd think. So I can imagine everyone did generally want to get this kid. I'm sure there are others. Maybe they might go over to it. We'll talk about that a bit later. So, but yeah, if you're at Madrid, you're probably thinking, maybe we did kind of miss the ball here. Stolo says, Tom, do you have any idea how much his wages are and how his contract structure looks like? I think you mentioned something about £100,000 a week and then over the 5 years. Is that correct? Just to confirm that.
Yeah. So the sort of rough number that I've heard at the moment is that Man United have offered him £100,000 per week. His terms of what he originally wanted was only €80,000, and considering that I think when he's at Lille he's only on €20,000 at the moment per week, to say that he's an under 21 player. When you get £20,000 a week, that's a very good wage at such a young age. And now that he's gone to a step-up club where he will get that bit of a pay rise and he will get that structure in, the way United have basically done it is he's 18 years old. They've basically given him a 6-year contract. By the age of 24, prove to us why you should earn more money with performances and how you're going to conduct yourself towards the club as a player. They've offered him £100,000 per week, and how his contract looks like, and it will be structured is, they will sign 5 years plus one, £100,000 per week. By the end of every season, if he meets certain criteria of expectations personally to him in terms of bonuses, so that might be clean sheets, that might be appearances, that might be statistic-wise, it might be as low as conditioning in terms of how much distance you cover for the whole season. Certain statistics of how they try and structure it for a young player so that it gives them that mentality and that ability to say, well, I want to fight to to earn maybe a bit more money and have a better life for myself and my family. You don't know the backstory of the kid or anything. I've not deep dived into it personally. You don't know what his motivations are behind it. But the one thing that I can say for it is he's not motivated by money based upon what he will sign, £100,000 a week. For an 18-year-old that you're going to have for 6 years, on £100,000 per week, you're going to have somebody for the age of 24 on £100,000 a week who's potentially going to be a first-team defender for you in, maybe 12 months or 18 months' time. I don't think that's bad business, especially in the market that we talk about for players now, where they demand stupid money from some clubs, and some clubs pay it and some clubs don't. But Man United have been in that ballpark to say, we're not going to pay stupid figures anymore. We're different now.
Amen to that. Big up Street MC, who says, United find fun in Sevilla's league buying good young French defenders on cheap. They have done that 10 years ago instead of buying overhyped fat Brits like Maguire and Shaw, green shots. Well, I mean, let's look at it. I always have. I do rate Shaw when he's fit. I think he's actually solid, but the problem is that he's injury prone. It's not rock science. The instance that eBay is bottom. Well, they have too much money. That's the problem. Director of football, yeah, I've said it in all two comments. They need better fullbacks. The last decent one was Evra, and also wing forwards who are balanced both sides of the game and not ego show ponies. Well, hopefully, in Ineos in the way that the structure will have a plan. You say Madrid's bit top heavy, really good Metal Natural, but well, I think first thing, Natural, I think is definitely left. I think he's left for a Saudi club, so he's gone. Rudiger is over 30, so he's not, I would say, a future prospect. Militao just come back from a long-term injury, so potentially is injury prone. And Alaba has also got numerous injury issues. So you've got basically you only got 3 centre backs there, and you've got 2 of them that are heavily injury prone. I'd be if I were Madrid, I'd certainly be wanting to get at least another centre back, because if all it takes is for Militao to get injured again, and then you're relying on Rudiger and Alaba for basically 60 plus games for the rest of the season, and that's assuming they don't get suspensions and what have you. So yeah, it's a bit touch and go, but I'm sure Madrid will get somebody. There's no doubt about that. So, but I'm sure this would have been a bit of a blow for them. Just sort of moving on just a bit obviously from Europe, and I guess because I think, and I'll get this. I think who asked it? Where was it? Yeah, Carpet at the beginning, saying, is the LIT still on? I think it's possible to go back for Greenwood. So obviously United have secured Euro here, but there was obviously talking in the background about doing a deal with Bayern, LIT, etc. And obviously Brandthwaite is there, though I guess Brandthwaite is more down the pecking order now, giving up more budge. Is there still a possibility that United will go back in for the LIT, or is that just a no-go anymore? And I will be right back, Tom. I just need to quickly get something.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, the way that the deal was almost being pipelined up for was Manchester United. They want to sign 2 centre-backs. The difference is they have a vacant spot because the players left in Varane. They have, in their minds, 4 quadrant centre-backs, which are Lisandro Martinez, this new kid in Leny Yoro, who's going to take Rafael Varane's place in that squad. You then have Harry Maguire and you have Victor Lindelof. They had an open vacancy right now. That's the reason why they've signed Leny Yoro. It was the way that they wanted it to be between Leny Yoro or Jared Brandthwaite to fill Varane's spot. And then when another spot becomes available, if they can sell Lindelof or Maguire, and one of those 4 that we always say about in football in centre-back positions, when one of those 4 drop out, you fill the void with another one. And as soon as they can remove Harry Maguire or Victor Lindelof for a fee that they think's quite collectible towards them for their players' value, for what they believe they're valued at, if they can get the right money that they're looking for one of those 2 players, and it makes sense to put it through the books, so then if they have money to go and buy Matthijs de Ligt, they probably will do. But the way that I always understood it was, out of the 3 of them, and I said this on the previous show, was they wanted Jared Brandthwaite initially. They didn't expect Everton not to be as negotiable as they have been.
Yeah.
And the way that they looked at it at the time was, Everton need money. They're in no position to negotiate. The tables have turned slightly because I've always said this before. Everton have 2 marquee players in that squad that they can get 50 million plus for, and that's Jared Branthwaite and Amadou Onana. And Amadou Onana is very close to signing for Aston Villa for I think it's 50 plus 5. So 55 million pounds, which ultimately gives them that wiggle room and that breathing space to say, okay, we don't have to sell both assets, but we had to sell somebody for big money. They've got they've got big money for one of those players. So the difference with Branthwaite is now Everton can turn around and say, we're not selling him. And that's the end of it. My personal opinion, this is just my opinion from how I understand it and and what I've heard and everything. I think the de Ligt thing will be put on the back burner. I think I think they will still negotiate with Bayern Munich to try and get an agreement at some point because Bayern Munich want to buy Jonathan Tah from Bayer Leverkusen. So they need to remove a spot to then fill one in. And the sort of way that I'm looking at it right now is, I think Bayern don't really have much room, as far as I'm aware, to sign Tah and then worry about it later, because I think they will be on the borderline of UEFA's guidelines in terms of financial regulations. So I don't really think they want to put themselves in that situation where they're forced to sell a player for less than their value, because that's not the way that Bayern do business or negotiate for players. So the way that I think United will do it is, I think they might make one last bid for Jared Branthwaite, and that will be it. And if Everton don't accept it, I think from what I believe anyway, I think they might push for 55 as the main figure and 60, but it's not going to be that they pay the whole 60 straight away. They'll pay it in installment settlements like they have done for Xerxes and Leny Yoro. So it might be like 30, 20, and then the other, say, 15 on top afterwards, or 20 on top, including the bonuses. That's the way that I think they'll do it. But out of the 3 of them, the way that I always understood it was Leny Yoro was the one that they wanted to try and persuade to come. They've managed to do that, and he wants to come now. He's gave his willingness to say that I want to go to Manchester United. And now you also have Jared Branthwaite, who's open to coming to Manchester United, but the club can't agree the fees for it. So you're at a brick wall. They're the 2 players that they want out of the 3. But if they can't get Branthwaite, and that spot becomes available out of the 4 centre-backs that I just said about, so if they can sell if they can sell Lindelof or Maguire, then I think then they will end up going in for someone like Matthias de Ligt if the budget stretches them to do so. That's the way that I just see how they will do it. But if I had to make a personal pledge between it, I think they will bombard Everton with one last offer. And if they get pushed back now again because Everton say we don't have to sell Branthwaite, so we're not doing it, then they'll just cut all the ties with it. And then if need be, they will go and sign Matthias de Ligt. He's open to come in. He'll take a pay cut to come to fit in United's wage structure. He wants to come. Bayern want to get rid of him. Manchester United are happy to do a deal for him, but they need a spot to become available. They had a spot. They've chosen that spot for Leny Yoro right now, because they always believe that Leny Yoro can go to another club if another club come in for him. There's not a lot of clubs going in for de Ligt at the moment. That's the difference. So they've got time with this deal. They had time with Branthwaite. They've run out of that time because they don't need money anymore, Everton. But Bayern have to sit there because they have to get money and they have to fill a spot. They have to open up a spot, so then they can try and fill it with Jonathan Tah. But until that spot opens, they're just on standby.
So essentially, it's almost like and obviously, big up everyone in the chat. Big up Stephanie who's coming in as well. So like, make sure you smash that like button. I mean, it's almost like a domino effect in that essentially, I guess Bayern in a way are waiting for, we're waiting for United to sell one of Maguire. We're essentially waiting to get a good offer from either Maguire or Lindelof, which will then enable us to basically get a bid in for de Ligt, which will then obviously allow Bayern to then go for Jonathan Tah as a kind of like a knockdown effect sort of thing. So I sort of understand. I also understand that. Now I think Tom is just heading out. So before we go, in fact, I actually I probably can discuss the next topic with while we wait for Tom to get back, because let's quickly. Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Thoughts? I mean, Oshman potentially going to PSG. That's an interesting move. I would have liked him at United, experienced striker, and I'm not also Nigerian. So, where is that news? Suppose it's Nico Williams. Sorry, guys. Euro. Onana. Ah, maybe it's not official yet. Well, there we go. While we just wait for Tom to get back, I don't think I need much in the way of discussing my thoughts on this. So obviously, Manchester United have authorized Mason Greenwood to travel to Marseille. For those who don't know, Marseille is where De Zerbi is. De Zerbi obviously took up the job from he was obviously linked to several jobs and left Brighton. Somehow went to Marseille. I'm not. That's one thing about this. Before we get into the good news, one thing that I'm not trying to belittle the French league, but I was a little bit confused as to De Zerbi going from Brighton to Marseille. I mean, I'm not sure where Marseille finished last season. I don't think they finished in the top 4 or 5. In fact, let me check, because I'm still perplexed that because he resigned, he left the Brighton job. Where did they finish? Yeah, they finished 8th. They finished 8th last season. So you left the Brighton job to go to a La Liga side that finished 8th. I don't know. I just think it's crazy. It's crazy, you know. So, but regardless, De Zerbi left and is obviously now at Marseille. And obviously, as Fabrizio has shown, and obviously a lot of people have said, Greenwood is joining him. Greenwood will take a private flight, undergo medical test, and sign a 5-year deal as new own player. Greenwood Manchester United documents in place. Here we go, already confirmed. So he is going to officially be a player for Marseille. Now, obviously, from what I know and what we shared before, I think Greenwood generally did want to stay in Spain. Obviously, he was reluctant to go there in the first place, and then, you know, and I think wanted to go and stay with obviously I think was it Getafe, wasn't it? Getafe there. But they couldn't afford him. That's the problem. They couldn't afford him. They couldn't afford his wages. Obviously, there were clubs in Serie A that were interested. You heard stuff from Napoli, you heard stuff from Lazio, Juventus, etc. But again, they couldn't afford him. And this is an interesting point, just about how, you know, you say we can offload players, but the Premier League really does distort the market when it comes to selling players in transfer fees, because for any other player, it's a fairly easy transition. But with Premier League players, you know, you just somehow you seem to get the money. But regardless, he's going to Marseille. It's been confirmed. I think the Greenwood, you can probably now put the Greenwood saga to bed. He's not going back to United. He was never going to come back to United. What's done is done. It's put to one side. It is what it is. But, you know, and obviously the fee, which I think, if I recall, I think the fee was about 30 million euro, if I recall. And at the end of the day, you know, he can rebuild his career obviously away from Manchester United. The only thing I would say is that, like, French and Marseille ultras are pretty intense. They're pretty intense. So does he really want? I don't know. It's Marseille ultras are pretty intense. They are very intense. And if you've got the mayor of the city, from what I hear, doesn't want him to come. You've got the ultras that don't want him to come. He basically has to hit the ground running, and basically he's got to prove by basically carrying Marseille to almost like a league title, or at least Champions League football in his first season. Otherwise, this guy's going to be hated a lot. But it is what it is. It's not my problem, but it's just something to consider, because, like I said, Marseille ultras are intense. They're one of the, you know, the more dangerous, let's put it, ultras in Ligue 1 compared to everyone else. So perhaps Or does I prefer French through degree? I don't know. I don't know. It's I still find it odd that he left Brighton. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that he generally thought that he was going to get one, because there were a lot of big jobs on offer. There was Bayern was vacant, Chelsea was vacant, United potentially was vacant, Liverpool was vacant, and then and Barca I think was vacant as well. So there were a lot of big jobs available, and the only way I can think of is he left because he assumed he would get one of those big jobs, or offer one of those big jobs. When it was found out that Barcelona went for obviously Hansi Flick, Bayern Munich surprised went for Vincent Kompany, United kept Ten Hag, Liverpool obviously Arne Slot, and Chelsea went for, I don't know, some Maraska guy, Mascar or something like that. That's what happened, But yes, there is a selling clause, right? Selling clause for yes. So if he is obviously sold on, there is a selling clause, which is pretty good. Sorry, but yeah, I think that I think the best thing about this deal with Greenwood, aside from the fact that it takes some negative PR for Manchester United, is that we can obviously invest some of that money, like invest some of that money into buying further players. Obviously, make maximum profits because he was an academy player, so that obviously circumvents FFP quite a bit. And then we can basically go on and potentially hit our targets. That's for me the best thing from this, because we do want to raise money from this transfer window, and me and Tom might just do a show in terms of the players that we should leave, because I still think you got to consider bids for McTominay, for Lindelof, for Maguire, even Casemiro. Eriksen for me shouldn't still be. After the centre backs, the midfield needs work. We can't go into next season with relying on mainly with a midfield of Eriksen and Casemiro. We need better. Whether that's Joao Neves or Ugarte, United need better. And if I was United, I would try and cash in on Eriksen, McTominay, and Casemiro. Casemiro to Saudi. McTominay maybe sell him to maybe not West Ham now, but maybe Fulham or something for 20-30 million. And then Eriksen, maybe back to Ajax. Who knows? I don't know. Is our 1% well, that's one of the things I'm gonna ask Tom, because we're gonna talk about outgoings when he comes back. But he's just back. I think he's taken I think he's just taken a bit of a phone call, so he will be back. So yeah, we'll speak about outgoings, because I don't think there needs to be much in discussion regarding Greenwood, to be honest. So I'll probably just cover the Greenwood thing here by myself, and then when Tom comes back, we'll probably just begin to wrap up the show talking about outgoings, and then potentially any other further signings that the United are linked to. So yeah, we'll come back to Wan-Bissaka, and yeah, Tom answered that. Yes, so we'll come back to these solo as soon as Tom gets back. But yeah, let me know in the comments, guys, what you think about this. I think this deal for obviously Greenwood. I think that above all else, I think that it means that the saga is gone. I always said that Greenwood was a talented player, one of the most talented up-and-coming players I'd seen. But at the end of the day, you can't do what you did, basically. So it's as simple as that, really. So, he won't be coming back. And, let's see what happens, and let's see what he does in Marseille. But, let's see what happens. Elias says, Onana, Maguire, Lindelof, Shaw, Bissaka, McTominay, Sancho, Eriksen, Rashford, I will sell them. Well, it's a good thing you mentioned those names. Onana is not going anywhere. Let's be real. He was just bought last season, so he's not going anywhere. Sorry, firstly, Maguire, Lindelof possibly, if the right bids come in. Shaw, Malacia is obviously back, but Shaw is probably more fit. I don't think we're going to sell. We obviously need to get another left back, and there's potential that Wan-Bissaka might be sold. So we need to obviously keep a fullbacks. But I don't think Shaw's going anywhere. I don't think there's any hint of Luke Shaw going anywhere, to be honest. And unless we get a top left back, and it means that his game time might be limited if Ten Hag preferences Molasse. But I don't think he will, because Luke Shaw also plays a left-sided centre back, which will be useful to Ten Hag. So McTominay, I agree. Sancho, they seem to have, buried the hatchet, so we'll probably see more of Sancho. Eriksen, I also think I agree with you. And Rashford, I mean, Rashford had a terrible season last season. I agree with that. But Ten Hag wants him to stay. And also, I don't think anyone really his wages are too high. No one's going to buy him for a lot with his wages high. It's just a non-starter. So Alias, I know Onana Rashford is not going, but my opinion is saying, yeah, of course, yeah, I get you. And but on 30 likes, so big up everyone. There's 30 likes. There's 31 people plus watching. Really appreciate it. So yeah, I think that I think just on the subject of United players that we think, obviously when Tom gets back, we'll talk about the outgoings, but that we think that we need to leave. I would agree with almost everyone on this list, with maybe the exception of you say anyone else in that. Yeah, no, I think that's everybody. I'd say that's everybody. And big up, and Tom is back. Big up. I just did a quick thing about the Greenwood thing. That's not very much to go through on there.
Apologies. Yeah.
No problem. You're good. So let's go back and talk about outgoings. So I'll come back to some of the questions, Tom. So I think, yeah, so Stephanie says quickly, so yeah, there's been talks about, because essentially we'll talk about outgoings now, and then potentially future signings. So there's been talk around Wan-Bissaka definitely leaving. I think there's been talk about him potentially going to West Ham, that type of thing. Is there any truth in that? Are United wanting to get rid of Wan-Bissaka this transfer window?
Yeah, the thing with Wan-Bissaka, as far as I've always known it anyway, was West Ham have always liked him as a player. Crystal Palace, I've always liked him ever since he's left to go to Manchester United, and they would have him back for a cut price fee from what they sold him for a couple of years back. The difference with Wan-Bissaka is, the one thing that I know about him personally is, if the opportunity come back to go back to London, he would go. That's the one thing that I do know about him. Going anywhere else in the Premier League, I think, is a bit of a stickling point for him. But going back to London is something that he's open to personally. The thing with West Ham that is ongoing at the moment is West Ham have open talks regarding signing Wan-Bissaka. It's believed that United will want a fee in the region of £20 million for him, if they can get that. There is slight concerns on West Ham's part, but they are convinced over his talents and prospects as a player personally. The concerns that they have over him is his fitness issues, in particular about what happened last season, not last season, the season before, Ten Hag's first season, when there was that bit of a period with Wan-Bissaka where he didn't play many games for, I think it was 3-4 months. He didn't train with the first team. And the only training that he ended up doing was he ended up going to the Netherlands, and he had like a one-to-one fitness training camp almost to get back up to full fitness. Now, the details surrounding that circumstance are unknown, but it's believed that it was due to a impact injury that he'd had through the pre-season, and then it had sustained and expanded over into the first team season. So he didn't play many games, but it wasn't massively reported on because United kept it confidential. That's the one. That's the way that I understand that situation with. So West Ham have that concern because they want the clarity over that, but Manchester United are going to be open and transparent with them, so long as they're not going to expose it onto the open market as to what his circumstance was and the injury concern was over that period, if it was an injury, as I understand it was. So with Wan-Bissaka, like I said, Manchester United want 20 million. West Ham are looking more to the region of 14 million. I think there will be an impasse on that. I think they will meet somewhere close to the middle. But the one thing you cannot doubt and you can say with Manchester United at the moment is the concern almost with United over the last couple of years has been that they don't sell players well. The window's barely been open. They've already sold Frankie de Jong. They've already sold Donny van de Beek.
Donny van de Beek, yeah.
Yeah, they've already sold Willy Kwambala.
Yeah.
They let a couple of players go, albeit such as Omari Forson and stuff, and they've gone to Monza and Yada. You've also now got Wan-Bissaka who's attracting interest. They've got a couple of clubs that are interested in Lindelof, in particular in Europe, and they want to try and negotiate those deals a lot quicker for some players in particular, because it frees up a spot for them to replace them with a player that they want, i.e. like a Bramthwaite or a Matthias de Ligt, if it comes to it. So the difference with Wan-Bissaka is, and I said this on the previous stream, was if they get the right sort of money that they want for him, the money that they get for him, they'll buy a player with that, should they get most of the money up front, which, because it's closer to 20, because if they get closer to Manchester United's original number of 20 million, that would entice Manchester United to do the deal more to the point of that they get more money up front. That's why they've put such a statement fee on, and they're happy to negotiate it so long as they get most of the money up front. That's the way that United want that deal to progress. Or they just get all of the money straight away, which is an even better deal for it. And when you liken it to a player that you might buy for £60 million, 20 million is what you'd pay in one instalment fee over 3 years normally. So if they get all the money, it's even better for United. But the way with it with Wan-Bissaka is they are going to have to take off on what they paid for him. I think they signed him 4 years ago. I think it would have been. And at the end of the day, they paid 54 years ago. The value of him has gone down based upon appearances, performance, but also fitness. He has had his issues with fitness and illness issues over the years. So at the end of the day, United are going to have to take a loss on him. But in terms of the market value of what they're going to sell him for, the money that they get for him, they will probably, what I would believe is, add a little bit to it, and they might go into the market and buy a right back. But I don't think it'll be that they sign some megalodon player who's a first teamer. I think they will probably sign a young player, maybe do something similar to what they've done with Leny Yoro. I know it would have been about 18 months ago, they was looking at Malo Gusto, who is now at Chelsea. He was 18 years old at the time when they was looking at him 18 months ago. Well. And you could have got him for around 10 million euros at that time. But United never pulled the trigger on buying him in it because it would have enticed buying him in a January window, not a summer window. Chelsea took a hit on him. He's turned out to be a decent player. So Man United, I think they will probably go, if they go and sell Wan-Bissaka, they'll probably recruit a player similar to that profile, but maybe more to the point, because they've got issues with left backs as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you try and kill two birds with one stone and we sign somebody who can invert to play both sides. So they might be naturally left-footed, so they might suit playing a left-back role, but they can also play at right-back. That's the difference. Or, with such as Leny Yoro now, for example, because he is a little bit more of a quick nipper player, if you need a player to fill in at right-back, Leny Yoro can come in and solidify a job for you. And if the way that Ten Hag's teams normally play, they hold like a back three when they have the ball higher up the field in possession. Leny Yoro would effectively just slot in as a normal centre-back anyway, just on the right-hand side. So it would work out for him, and it would be something that he'd be familiar with, playing in a back three system, or with other defenders around him, natural centre-backs. So at the end of the day, there's ways and means that United can go about it, but I personally would think that Wan-Bissaka will probably end up being sold because I think his mind wants to go back to London. I think he likes the city. I think he likes the city well. It's where he was brought up. It's where his family are. It's where his family live. And at the end of the day, he's always had that personal connection with that city. Some players, again, like I've always said this before about some players, they like a certain country, they like a certain city, they never want to leave it. Some players idealise being in an urban environment, being in a city like London, for example, based upon what it offers them, the glitz, the glamour of it. Some players might brazen themselves and might like,
So,
going up north. It's
so
something similar to what they used to.
Just quickly, just adds on to the Maro's point about so how are we going to replace Wan-Bissaka with 15-20 mil, or are we going into a season with just Dalot? Don't forget Shaw is also injury prone. So I guess the point is that it's just like, if obviously Wan-Bissaka goes, you only have Dalot, Shaw, and Malacia as fullbacks, and obviously you've got Shaw was injury prone. So presumably Wan-Bissaka goes, are United going in for another fullback? If so, who and how's it going to go about it? Yeah.
I think they would go in for another fullback. And the reason being why I think they will do is because if they get 20 million for him and they get all of the money up front or most of it up front, so let's just, it's almost like just predict it almost. Let's say they get 20 million from West Ham. What I would believe in the way United have done business this window in particular is they would take all the money that they get from the Wan-Bissaka deal. They will add to it to round it to say 30 million, which gives them a little bit better of a budget to look at in the market. And they will sign the player for £30 million with that budget, so long as they fit a certain criteria of what they want. Ten Hag likes Diogo Dalot very much. I think even personally from a lot of United fans, he is a fan favourite player. He had a very good season last season in what you can only describe as a shocking season for Manchester United. He was one of the main shining lights of the whole season. And I think he was hard done by probably not to win Man United Player of the Season based upon his performances. The way that it is, like I say, Dalot would be that number one option, but you have got to have a backup to come in and operate to play that role. Leny Yoro, as I said before, could invert to that because he's got the abilities and his style of play fit to cover as a right back, kind of like how Joao Gomez has done at Liverpool for many years. He's a naturally gifted centre back, but he can play right back and he can cover it if it needs to happen. Same thing with Luke Shaw. He's a natural left back, but he can cover to play a left-sided centre back because his style of play and his characteristics as a player fit to play that role. I believe that they will sign a centre back and they'll just add the money that they need to buy one out there. But that's where I think United's marketing in terms of buying the right player will come into fruition. And for me, if I had to guess who they would go for, personally, I'm not going to throw a name there. I'll give you the whole breakdown of what I think they will do because of how they look at the left back position, and I believe it's a problem because of the fitness issues of Malacia and Shaw. They don't want to go down the loan system unless they have to, an emergency loan somebody like they did with Reguilon last summer. So the best thing for both worlds is you have a vacant spot at right back that needs filling if you sell Wan-Bissaka. You also have concerns about if players are going to stay fit on the left-hand side of your pitch. Buy a player who can play both fullback roles. And if you can find that player, brilliant. One of them's just gone off in the open market now. He can play every single where in the back line, and that's Nikolai Milenkovic. He's going to Nottingham Forest for, I think it's around about 15 million euros. And he can play as a right back. I've seen him play as a right back for Fiorentina. I've seen him play as a centre back, and I've seen him play as a left back. He can play all the way along the back line, and he's comfortable in all different positions. That's one player that you could have got in the market, and that's what I think United will look at. I think they will look at a versatile player who can play both sides. Might be naturally suited to one side than the other, but he can cover it if need be. And then when you get to another summer window, say next summer, it's a position that they would prioritise, but then they would have more time to scout the markets and see who's available, who's playing well, who will suit what we want to do going forward in the future, and see if it fits all the criteria of what they want.
That's fair. That's fair, Tom. Thanks for the update, man. I appreciate that. Just want to give a shout out to Rich. So big up Rich, man, from it's not Rich Sports Cinema, it's RD United TV. So if you're watching, guys, make sure you head over and subscribe to his channel. Big up, guys. Big up Rich. Sue, and big up Jarvis as well. Jarvis says, Jarvis is ready to yes to weeks ago. Negotiation between is ongoing. PSG pushing, but no agreement as of yet. Yeah, I would suspect as such. I mean, I would rather United just go in for Joao Neves. But what I suspect will happen is that PSG will get Joao Neves, and then they'll then feel like they can now offload to get some of that money back for what money is spent. They'll then unload Ugarte, and they want Manchester United to come in and buy Ugarte. That's what I'm feeling is probably going to happen. But I don't know. Tom, do you know a bit more about the whole Joao Neves situation? Are United in at all, or is this just no chance? It's just all PSG from here on out.
Yeah, I very much liken this to how they've done the Leny Yoro deal, but to the point they've only ever discussed with his agent around personal terms and what their client would want, and if he would be enticed to come to Manchester United. They've never spoken to Benfica. They've never put any bids into Benfica. They've never agreed a fee with Benfica. So Benfica understand that United like the player. They put their interest about him weeks and months ago, but they've never gone as far as actually throwing offers on the table like they have done for, say, Leny Yoro and Joshua Zirkzee. The difference is Zirkzee is a top striking talent in European football. They've put money down that you need to buy him, maybe paid a little bit more, so then they can move in the market. Leny Yoro, top centre-back target in the world, top prospect for the future. They put the money down for it. Joao Neves probably fits that model of players that they're trying to sign. The only difference that I say with Joao Neves is Benfica isn't like a Lille and it isn't like a Bologna. You are dealing with a football club that is very hung-strung on price tags, and they don't tend to drop them at all. You saw in the last couple of years, I would say, with Benfica, there have been a couple of players that have left that club and they've gone for in excess of £80 million, no give or take. It's 80 million plus. You had Joao Felix that went to Atletico Madrid for well over €100 million a couple of years ago. You then also had it where they sold Edison a couple of years ago. In hindsight, maybe a long time ago. They've sold players like Otamendi before. Victor Lindelof, they sold to Manchester United for more than his market value. You then also, I'm sure, again, there's a couple more players that are probably slipping my mind at Benfica. So Enzo Fernandez as well. Again, there's another one, over €100 million release clause. Chelsea went in there and paid what they had to because they couldn't negotiate with them. And Chelsea at the time negotiated for hella players, loads of players across Europe. Well, that was the one deal that they just could not budge Benfica on that price tag. But in several bids, couldn't budge it, so then they just said, you know what, we'll just pay it then at the end of the window. They got sick and tired. They paid the money. They got the player. The difference with Joao Neves is he is another one of those players where they have hung-strung him down with a price tag. If you don't meet the valuation, don't bother asking. Don't bother calling. The difference with PSG is they have saved a lot of money not having to pay Kylian Mbappe's wages. So in terms of marketing their moves in the market, it makes good sense to go for a player like Joao Neves because of the age, because of the talent and prospect that he will give you. But also, you look at the stack mentality of their midfield now. Zaire Emery, Carlos Soler, you can even add Ugarte into that mix because he's still quite young. If you then bring in Joao Neves to that, Vitinha, you've got a lot of young, talented midfielders in that team and that squad. A couple of them are going to have to budge. Well, I think one of them, at least, is going to have to budge out of that. And I do agree with what you say. And I think that PSG will probably end up signing him because of the, like I say, he fits the criteria of what they want. And then I think as soon as that happens, PSG will almost be a lot more reasonable to Manchester United in the market if they want to sign Ugarte. They've held talks about signing Ugarte for the last 2 weeks. It's been very positive and very productive. United know what it takes to buy him. PSG understand that the 50 million, they're not going to get exactly what they want for him back, what they paid 12 months ago. So they are going to have to negotiate in some way. But it's almost like what United have done with Leny Yoro, which is we'll pay whatever it takes, we'll get him in, and we'll worry about the consequences of it later. And we'll sell players, if we have to sell players, for a little bit cheaper than what we would normally do. And we'll cover the books. But if it means we get our top targets, we're not bothered. and that's how a lot of top football clubs run at the end of the day.
Mm.
So for me, I don't see Manchester United paying the sort of figures that Joao Neves is going to cost. I like him as a player. I think he's quite good. Again, I'm going to say it again. Like I said with Leny Yoro, the age profile at 18 years old, you're going to have to pay more than what you're paying for Leny Yoro right now. What United have paid for this kid, in terms of how they've been able to structure the deal, is very good. It's a very good deal. The Joao
Mm.
Neves deal, it's not a good deal financially. And with
Yeah.
the way that United have these new people running the football club and they run it based upon, does he fit the football structures profile? He probably does, yes, for the sort of player that they want. But this deal does not fit the financial
Yeah.
threshold. So I don't see it's going to happen. Whereas the Ugarte deal, I can see it meeting the threshold because PSG will need to get some money back. And Manchester United want to sign a midfielder, and he fits the profile of what they want.
That makes some. So thank you for thank you for clarifying that. Was there any other questions? I feel I missed one. So Thomas are the CBs that we have as targets. Do we have any other targets for right back or left back, especially with Amsterdam? Yes, that's kind of tied into it. So I think and then I'll comment, and then Giles says, "Good evening. I'm still with Spurs United. Someone actually one of its bigger defenders hands you can find. If we get to it two with Evans Maguire, that's a sort of defense. I don't disagree with that, Giles. Yeah, so just going back to Solo's comment just briefly on the left back fullback thing. Are you aware of any specific players that United may be linked to regarding like right back or left back, assuming Wan-Bissaka
Yeah. There's two players that I can think for both. There's one player that I can think, sorry, for both of the positions, irrespectively. Left back, this one's a little bit more of a left field one. One of the players that United have looked at for the last 12 months, because they was massively concerned with Malacia's fitness issues, and they looked at buying him last summer, but he didn't end up selling. He didn't end up going. He ended up signing a new contract, and it's very unfortunate for the kid because he played a brilliant season the year before at Brentford, and the kid's Rico Henry. Now, Rico Henry is a very sought after left back. He's through the English system with the under 18s, the under 21s, 23s. He's been through the whole system. If he would have played for majority of this season, I think he would have had another good season as well. I think he would have probably been on the flight to Germany. That's how good I think that kid is. But in terms of that, it's going to take a lot to sell that kid away from Brentford. You're going to have to talk 50, 60 million pounds. United don't have 50, 60 million pounds lying around to sign a left back that's maybe not going to start week in, week out. That's the one player that I know for sure that they've always looked at in terms of a left back. And in terms of a right back, they really, this season, even before Ineos came in, but even after since they've came in, they like Jeremy Frimpong of Bayer Leverkusen.
Jeremy Frimpong.
Eric Ten Hag has always looked at him personally. Yeah, well, another Dutch player, yes. He's always looked at the sort of style profile that he brings. He will do what he wants as an inverted role. He'll do what Diogo Dalot does, but Frimpong's final third play is a lot more developed at this point in time than Diogo Dalot's is. The difference is Dalot can put crosses in the box, like what you saw with that Garnacho wonder goal, for example. You can put a lot of crosses in the box. The difference with Frimpong is he'll stretch the play. He'll take it all the way to the byline. Dalot rarely does that. He just puts crosses into the box as and when he gets the ball, or he drifts into the box himself. That's the way that's kind of the difference in balance between the two players. The Frimpong deal is a little bit different because, as far as I'm aware, by middle of August, he has a release clause in his contract of 36. I think it's 38 million euros, which I think roughly works out around about 32 million pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe just a little bit more. In the market, again, like I say, for players, it's not a bad deal. And what I said before about if they sell Wan-Bissaka for say 20, they will stump up maybe that other 14 million pounds from somewhere. Maybe if they sell Casemiro and the wages that they would save from paying him might equate to winning around about £14 million. So the numbers add up. They can sign Jeremy Frimpong if they want as that replacement, if he's willing to come. But the one thing that I would say, I don't think if they do move for Frimpong, I don't think it's really a hard deal to do. And I'll give you 2 reasons why. It's the same thing with the Xerxes deal. There's a release clause in process. You can just trigger it. Convincing him to come, I don't think that's going to be hard. His former head of academy director at Manchester City, when he was an academy boy at Manchester City, was Jason Wilcox, who is now the technical director at Manchester United. Again, you've got another player who was in the same City sphere in age group as him, which was Jadon Sancho. He's at Manchester United. So if you want to use Jadon Sancho as an equator to say, well, come to Manchester United, you can link up with Jadon. One of the things that I always knew with the City Academy was Jadon Sancho and Jeremy Frimpong always played on the right-hand side of play. That's the one thing that I always knew about. And he interchanged with Phil Foden with right and left wings. But those two on the right-hand side, they always built a good partnership in the youth ranks. That's the one thing that I knew about Manchester City's academy, especially on that right-hand flank when both of them was in that team at the same time. So in terms of development, there is a partnership there you can form, which in the academy ranks, Jason Wilcox knows works. He was the academy director. So if they want to go out there and sign a right back, in particular, Jeremy Frimpong is not going anywhere. Nobody's paid the release clause. It's open playing field. So if they want to sign him, if they sell Wan-Bissaka and they stump up the other money, it can be done. At the moment in time, a right back's not a priority. But if they sell a player, I said before about Ineos's policy, they remove one, they want to add one in, and they want to fill the place. That's the kind of way that they want. If they fill it with a proven player, a first-team player, then they want to do that. If they fill it with a squad player, they want to do that. So, again, if they want to move forward with it, there's the options there to do so.
Thank you, for Tom. Sid, I've just seen, because I think I actually missed this earlier on, so I apologize. Jens shows as a great show as always. Appreciate it, buddy. Just want to ask, there's a rumor with Man United to be linked with Adam Wharton. Any truth? I don't know where that rumor's come from. Tom, have you heard anything specifically about Adam Wharton? I haven't heard any, certainly from any top journalists anyway, but have you heard anything?
No, I've not heard anything with Adam Wharton. The only time that I ever heard him get linked to Manchester United was when the current director of football, Dougie Freeman, was being tipped to be head of recruitment or for a technical director's role at Manchester United. But in the end, they didn't end up choosing Dougie Freeman. They stuck to the option of Jason Wilcox. They brought in Christian Vivell almost in the role, and Jason Wilcox, in the role that Dougie Freeman could have filled. So they went for different candidates instead of going for Freedman. And if they would have gone for Freedman, I think he would have probably given them great analysis on a lot of those Palace players who are having quite progressive times of it. And another player that springs to mind, if you want to sign a left back, Tyreek Mitchell at Crystal Palace. He's had a brilliant season. He's had a brilliant season. Again, it's going to be a difficult deal to do. Who knows? You maybe throw Wan-Bissaka in the deal and add a bit of cash to it. You might get somewhere. But again, the way that United are mixing it up in the market, I wouldn't be surprised if they explore these opportunities. Because at the end of the day, the policy of how Ineos want to work this club from going forward is, does it meet the football criteria of a player that we sign? If it does, brilliant. That's 50% of the deal done for them. Does it make financial sense to sign the player in terms of what they're valued at? What would they fit into the wage structure? And again, do they fit the financial package overall of what we want to sign a player for? If it does, they sign the player. The Xerxes deal, as I said, G, it fits in the wage structure, it fits the football criteria, it fits the financial criteria, signed. Leny Yoro ticks all the boxes, signed. Matthias de Ligt, if they get the sort of nod to move one of the players out, again, fits the criteria of everything that they want, they'll sign him probably. Branthwaite, if Everton played ball and negotiated, he won't be having this situation. He'd sign. It fits everything of what they want. So Ineos and the way that they run the club, they're being reasonable in the market for how much players should be valued at. Like with this Leny Yoro kid, they believe he should be valued at what Lille are asking for. He's a top talent. He's a future superstar. So he should be valued at what Lille expect. And if Real Madrid don't think he's valued at that, and they're supposedly talent ID experts for young players, they've done it with Hendrick, they've done it with Bellingham, and Mbappe now. They're doing it with all these different kids around Europe, but they didn't want to stump up money for this kid. There's a case you could question as to why, but also you have to question Real Madrid's strategy of trying to lure players just because of their club's name or the history of their club. That can only go. That might entice the player themselves, but when the agent actually speaks to them and maybe another football club comes in and maybe says the opposites or puts a bit of pressure on them in saying, well, we put our money where our mouth is, they haven't, it's going to play on the minds of somebody. It would do to anybody. But no, with the Adam Water thing, I've not heard anything regardless of it. But the only time that I ever heard something, it was minuscule, and it got squashed after I had a couple of phone calls to some people who were working in and around Crystal Palace's recruitment setup, is that Adam Wharton's a young player. He's had a breakthrough season this season. Yes, he went to the Euros. He was with the Euros squad, but he didn't get many minutes in the end. He got a decent experience out of it at the end of the day, and he's preparing for. Well, he's on holiday now at the moment for 10. He's on holiday for 12 days. Crystal Palace have given a lot of their players, because I know that from what they'd originally given Elise until he signed. So 12 days rest of recuperation, vacation, and then report back for pre-season the 13th day after the holiday.
That's fair, Tom. Thank you so much. Seven is Artisan. Could you, if you haven't already answered my left foot question? I'm trying to. You're right, and I did say we'd answer the next stream.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to remember the question. Now, was the question, Stephanie? Just remind us in the chat. Was it why aren't there enough left-footed players anymore, or do United need more left-footed players? In
it was. I remember this now. It was quite a unique question, and we said we'd answer it. Yeah.
Yes. If you're watching, just remind us specifically what was it that why aren't there enough left-footed players in the Premier League or United? Yeah. Where are there something? But I know it was about left-footed players, but I can't remember the specifics. So if you could just remind us, then we will definitely answer it before the show is out, because I did say that we'd answer it. So thank you so much for that. Chris Pass says Forza Soccer. Yep, indeed. Let's. California would be another great. It sounds like he sounds like he's going to Arsenal from what I hear. I don't a link to it, so that's fair. So there's a Tom and players back accounting. Is there any news coming out on the vibe in the camp, especially with all the coaching changes and what roles and influences they do have? So I guess the question sort of is there more of a positive atmosphere around United now, or beginning to, or what's the kind of what's people's feelings, I guess?
One of the feelings that I've heard sort of a couple of different messages. One with regards to René Hack, and another one with regards to Ruud van Nistelrooy's integration into the setup.
Okay.
Ten Hag has been a lot more hands-on, as far as I'm aware, in terms of structures with the players in particular. Ten Hag sort of the way that let me sort of characterize it. The way that Ten Hag ran Ajax was he had a backroom staff he had 5 coaches. He had a fitness coach, he had a set piece coach, he had an assistant coach who was based more upon attacking ball play, and he had a defensive coach who was in league with being able to play out from the back and how zonal playing works. And then he had himself, which was that 5-man team. The way that he structured those team, that Ajax team was, he had the main influence over players in terms of how to tactically fit them into a style, but he let his coaches run their own different categories and expertise that they was best placed at. That's the best way that I can say it for it. So bringing in Ruud van Nistelrooy, the one things that I've heard about more from the attacking sense of how they've brought up to pre-season is They like the variations of drills that they've been given. It's something new that they haven't had through the whole time that they've ever been at Manchester United. One of the bigger points that I maybe make a more point towards is that I had a little rumour anyway inside Manchester United. One person inside United insisted that Marcus Rashford has got his mojo back. And one of the things that he likes in particular of it is Ruud van Nistelrooy played a similar sort of role of what Rashford does. He likes to drag the ball, run 50 yards, hit and be a lot direct with players. Ruud van Nistelrooy is a very direct number 9. But the difference is you can variate that to wide players as well, because the modern game now suits wingers being more direct than being conservative with the ball. And that's why you have a lot more directness in football, in particular in the attacking third, where players will run at you. You saw that in the Euro final. You had Jamal and Nico Williams. They didn't hold back. They went full throttle to players. Whether they got past the player or not, they still persisted. And they got more out of the game for doing so than they probably wouldn't have if they didn't. So at the end of the day, with how I understand it with the attacking players, they like the different drills that they've been given. They like the input that Ruud van Nistelrooy is having in terms of the variations of when you should run, when you should hold your run for balls, where the spaces are and how you can pull players out of spaces and linking it up with midfield. And that's what I talk about the input of Ten Hag. He understands the tactical structure because he's done that sort of role with Ajax, where he gave his coaches the ability, but he almost linked up, say, midfielders to attackers and midfielders to defenders and let the coach do the coaching, but give his input on where he believes it needs to be more detailed for players as to how or where they are going wrong. And this is how you improve on it. This is how you do differently. So in same point with Rennie Hart, one of the things that he's done in particular, because they've got a lot more younger players on the team right now, he's put more of an input on ball retention. Can we keep the ball? As a defensive back four, the way that they've systemized it for pre-season is on one training pitch, you play as a back four. On the other training pitch, you play as a back three. You have 5 attacking players or midfielders. You have 5 pressing players. Press you persistently for, say, 90 seconds. Keep the ball for the full 90 seconds between a back four or a back three, or how long you can keep it for. Then they will add another player in, who's another option. They will drop another player out. Then you will add a different player in. So it always brings that freshness. So then the 3 players who are on training pitch as a back three, 2 of them will transition over to the 4 and vice versa. And you're working with different partners. You're getting an understanding of each other's chemistry. What footing are they preferred? Where are the spaces? Where are the lines? That's one of the things that I've heard in particular from a lot more of the leadership players and experienced players. They've waited for this to come for a while. Just give us a breakdown. If we're going wrong, okay, then give us the basics of how we can improve them. Where are the spaces for us to open passes up? Because, for example, players like Harry Maguire, you've always had this rhetoric around him saying that he doesn't move the ball quick enough, or he's not a progressive passer of the ball. The difference from Maguire, he's never been coached that way. He had coaches here. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did not teach his coaches did not teach their defenders to play progressive passes.
That's true, yeah.
Ten Hag in his first season wanted to do that, but he didn't have the player who was going to drop deep to receive those progressive passes. So he can't coach that way, was the way that it was being poured out there. But now, the more moral feeling of the training pitch is that the new coaching staff that has been set up are having their own input in their own areas of expertise, and Ten Hag's almost been the glue to it to say, right, now we need to join midfield to attack. Now we need to join defence to attack. Now we need to join all of it together. And effectively, the players have had a positive reaction to it all because they're understanding where they're going wrong, but they're also being shown the basic principles of how they can improve. And then from there, the more hopeful feeling going forward is that they will then progressively improve, and it will develop into consistency coming into a season. That's just the way that they're trying to work it.
That's fair, Tom, and hopefully I answer your question, Solo. Thank you so much for the question. Let me see. Big up Rob, Rob G. Saw on the chat. Saw it later. No worries, Rob. The only thing I would say is that if you want to hear about the sort of Leny Yoro breakdown, probably watch the first 20-25 minutes of this stream, and that's where the kind of the bulk of the Leny Yoro sort of stuff is. If you want to sort of catch up. So yeah, but thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Just one thing's for sure: United is not Brexit FC. Thank goodness. John Ho says, any trooper Andrew and Rabiot coming to Manchester United again? I know there was strong links about Rabiot, but I mean, is he an option, or is there anything really happening from that, Tom?
As far as I'm aware, the only other time that Andrew Rabiot would have signed for Manchester United was under the old structured regime, which was we will pay whatever it takes to get players in. The old regime of structuring with Richard Arnold and John Murtough was experience over talent. And if we have to pay a little bit more money to get experience, we'll do it. Rabiot would give you that experience, but it's going to come at a pretty price of over £250,000 per week. But his mother negotiates only at £350,000 per week.
Yeah.
And his mother's not a very easy person to negotiate down with. John Murtough, he flew out to Juventus. He flew out to Turin. He met with Juventus's representatives and said, basically, he's a free agent. I want to speak to him. Give me the contacts of how I can speak to him personally. I'm in Turin already. Set up a meeting for me, please. They did so. He couldn't negotiate the terms. He come back. As far as I'm aware, he flew out there in Turin 10:30 a.m. By 12:30, he was already on a plane back to Manchester. So 2 hours, he had to set up a meeting. Probably didn't speak for that very long. Understood that the wages are going to be astronomical. I completely walked away from the whole thing. But I've not heard any truth around Adrien Rabiot coming to Manchester United. Not now. And as I said before, they have this wage structure principle of where £200,000 is the price point. But if we believe that a player deserves to be paid more than that because of what they've done or what they've achieved, and it fits the criteria of what we want, okay, then we'll have a conversation about it. We're not going to guarantee it, but we'll have a conversation about it. Adrien Rabiot does not fit that principle of a player who deserves to be paid over that in Ineos's eyes. There's only, I would say, maybe 2 players in European football that I could think of right now that Ineos might have broken that structure for. One of them's just gone for a free transfer. And the other one plays in the Saudi Pro League, which would have been Cristiano Ronaldo. If they would have kept him on, they would have had to take on that wage structure, but they would have done so because of the commercial value that he brings to their club. And the value outweighed what you would have to pay Cristiano Ronaldo. So it would have made financial sense and a football sense as well.
Yeah. No, yeah, I hear that. I understand that, fun. Thanks. Hope that answers your question, John. Giles, if we get, let's say, for customer and 8 million in wages, we're close to 2 million. That means we have about 15 million available for fees and 7 million for wages. That's a fair point, Giles. Fair point. Doggy says Garty should be priority if Casemiro and McSauce are going. Giles says, let's see if a couple of clubs do come in for Cassie's our most expensive player right now. I would think so. Yeah, I think on him and Sancho must be on similar wages. I think I'm getting the impression that or maybe Sancho might be earning slightly less, but they're probably quite close. I think with maybe Rashford probably out earning them both on his new contract. That's my understanding. I think. Let's have a look. And most of the great insights. Thank you, Tom. I'll come back to the question. I think you might have posted a question below. Let's have a quick look. I'll come back to Rob's question. Yep, found it here. So, question to both: why is it left-footed players only seem to occupy a maximum 3 spots in 11s? Does it matter? And which positions are key to have the players? I suspect. I guess I would imagine. I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not the best when it comes to sort of tactical analysis and positional sense, but I definitely know why it's important to have, like, say, a left-footed centre back. I can see why that's important. Oftentimes, there's been this ongoing trend of playing right-footed players on the left and left-footed players on the right, in terms of as wingers. So it seems to me that if you're going to have a left-footed player in your team, the key areas seem to be at centre back and also at right wing. Those seem to be the two positions where it seems to be, for whatever reason, where teams want to have a left-footed player. Outside of that, unless you obviously want to
and a
strike,
left back probably, and that's the three.
Yeah, unless you want to have a striker who's obviously two-footed as well, like the person you see in the shot, that, obviously, I'm not going about Greenwood, but one of the things I admired about Greenwood was the fact that he was two-footed, So, and I think the idea of a two-footed striker, like, I think is quite good. So, but yeah, I think those are probably the three positions. I would say. I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that, Tom?
No, I think you hit there nail on the head. Like, the natural consensus is that you have a left-footed player play left back. Ideally, you'd want. Well, how can I say it? If you want your team to be progressive with the ball, you probably in modern day football now need to have a left-sided centre back who's left-footed. That's just the way that football is going, and you have a right-footed centre back who can play right-sided centre back. Again, I agree with you on the point of you have a left-footed player probably plays off the right because of the cutting and inverting in. But I think with wide players now, especially in football, we've been burned. I think you've almost had the litmus test with Anthony, where he's so one-sided of his game on that left foot. He's got nothing else. You can't run down the byline and put a ball in the box. People even questioned before. I was one of them who was massively critical. Can he even pass with his right foot?
Yeah.
I mean, is it a gimp leg? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never seen him use the ball.
Yeah.
And with his right foot. At the end of the day, that's probably the three marquee positions. Maybe you could argue to say that something that's maybe a little bit more unique in football is you have a goalkeeper that's left-footed. And the only reason why I say a goalkeeper that's left-footed is, as a defender, when you have a right, you were always used to being brought up because the natural consensus is there's more right-footed footballers than there is left. That's just the rhetoric of how football is genetically pleased, I guess. As a defender, you have a left-footed goalkeeper playing a loop ball over. It's going to be directed towards a different angle of how you're going to see that ball. For example, let me put it this way: if you have Ederson at Manchester City play a long ball to Erling Haaland, the looping angle of where that ball will land and the trajectory of it is different than what you're used to as a player. Whereas you have a goalkeeper maybe like Onana, who is naturally right-footed, will direct the ball in the opposite angle of where it's meant to go. And because of those trajectories of passes, defenders, it's almost unnerving and it's uncomfortable because they're not used to it. Exactly the same when you have attackers now press goalkeepers who are left-footed or right-footed. You don't know you're not used to them playing the ball to the left because most goalkeepers are naturally right-footed. And the passing angles again, this is where like goalkeepers who are so calm on the ball are becoming more sought after in football nowadays. And it's almost better if you can be good with both feet. Forget being good with one, you have to be good with both. That's just how football is now. And if you're not good with both, you're going to struggle at the top level. That's the only other position that I maybe could argue being left-footed gives you that advantage going forward in maybe a starting 11, just because it's a little bit more unpredictable. But yeah, I think in terms of tactical wise, you can be left-footed and play anywhere on a football pitch, but more if you want to use it from a tactical sense. I think those 3 and 4 positions we've just said probably suit it better than the rest of them. And there's only maybe the odd anomaly that plays wherever. Like somebody could probably bring me up a top, left winger who's naturally left-footed, or like you see Foden sometimes he plays out on the left, and he does quite well, and he does all right on that side, and you have the odd midfielder maybe like you had with the Euros final. That Spanish squad had been so used to Rodri with that right foot ticking the ball over, and then you had Zubimendi come off the bench and left-footed ticking the ball around and playing different angles and arcing the ball. It's different. That's the thing that I say. So yeah, I think it's good to maybe have those different options. I think anyway.
Fair. Hopefully that answers your question, Stephanie. Please let us know.
It's a good question, that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. Definitely one for before. Right, we'll take a few more and then we'll round things up because it's midnight here or just after midnight here in the UK, and we've got work tomorrow. But yeah, thanks for Joe. Catch up and already. Smash the like button, of course. Thank you so much. I think you also have good questions as well. Question, Tom. Apart from us bringing a centre forward and centre back, can you see us also bringing in midfield and left? Or do you think bring for signs from the fans? We already did talk about the left back situation a while back, so probably we'll wind back Rob about 15 minutes, I think. So probably at the 1 hour 15 mark. We talked about left back. I think as far as the midfielder goes, I guess the thing we can add on to that, although we did touch on Joao Neves and Ugarte, is there any other midfielder that Manchester United are looking out for, and are there midfielders that Manchester United are wanting to offload, i.e. McTominay, Casemiro, Eriksen, etc.? What is the midfield situation, Tom?
Well, the McTominay stance hasn't changed since last summer. They'll accept a bid of £30 million, no problem, no issues. Okay. They was actually prepared to accept a lot less. I think it was around about £24 million last summer from West Ham when they tried to sign both Maguire and McTominay. They ended up pulling out of both deals because they had a couple of fitness issues on the tour with centre-backs and then midfielders. They needed to fill the numbers. So they pulled both the Maguire and McTominay deals, and that was on Manchester United's end, not West Ham's end. Okay. Fulham have already made a bid for McTominay. I believe it to be in and around about 20 million. So they're only 10 million away. They have just had a massive influx of cash from the Paulinho deal, which gives them, as far as I'm aware, in terms of instalments, gives them around about £28 million up front. So £28 million up front, they can find another £2 million, I'm sure, from somewhere if they want to sign McTominay. But again, Man United might compromise and they might accept 28 exact. They might come down a little bit and negotiate with Fulham if they give them maybe more of the money up front than what you would do if you pay 30. So again, it's all about negotiations and stuff. I do think that McTominay pushing towards it, I think Fulham will make another offer. And I think Man United, that's where the negotiations will kick in. They will probably come to a compromise. But if they can keep McTominay, they also don't see it as a bad thing. He's a very integrated player in the squad. He's a very good character within the dressing room and within the actual group as well, as far as I'm aware. And he's a player that Ten Hag sees the benefits of having as a squad player. He is one of those squad player preferences that Erik Ten Hag does look at and thinks, if I need a player to go in and do a job for me, it's not a bad option to have off the bench. That's the sort of way that McTominay is. And I think even if you want to look at it last year, he did score quite a few goals from set pieces and direct play in the last 5 minutes of games that contributed to United getting some last-minute winners and vital points on the board. So he does bring his perks. He does have his moments, I guess you could say, when he does get maybe starting opportunities. But yeah, that's probably how I'd degree it towards McTominay. And with Casemiro again, I think, there is that Saudi interest that's been there with the PAF. I've discussed this before. You go to the PAF directors, you negotiate with them, they fit them into whatever club they believe that he'll benefit playing towards and has a spot option out of Al Hilal, Al Nassr, Al Ittihad, and Al Ahly. And out of all those four PAF clubs, whichever one needs a void filling, which as far as I was aware, Cristiano Ronaldo had made a pledge that if they do end up signing Casemiro to the PAF scheme of players, he'd want him to go to Al Nassr. But the PAF scheme's sort of hector-skelter has been that Al Ahly have a vacant midfield spot that they need to fill with one of those players. Al Ittihad have had Fabinho. The other clubs just slipped my mind. Al Nassr, Al Ahly. Al Hilal have Ruben Neves in midfield, so their spots filled. So again, like I said, there's a couple of clubs that have those spots filled in there. But again, I think Casemiro, irrespective of it, I think there'll be European clubs that will probably maybe make a gamble. And I would say more maybe from Italy that maybe take a stab at him. Even it might not hit £40 million that United want. It might go 25 or 28 or whatever. But there is a couple of clubs in Italy that I believe anyway would take him. I think a club like Juventus wouldn't suit him that badly, to be fair. I don't necessarily disagree in saying that a club like maybe an Inter wouldn't take him if it means that they can fill up a spot in that squad. He's a similar sort of profile to Brozovic and that kind of player that they would want. Maybe not as technically gifted, maybe as a ball player, but as a destroying player. And we know what Casemiro can do, and the league's a lot slower for him in Italy. So it might suit him a little bit better to stay in Europe than maybe go to Saudi Arabia. But again, it's up to him and what he has on the table at the end of the day.
That's fair, Tom. Thank you very much, buddy, for that update. I hope that answers your question, Rob. And then big up Tom. Interesting about the coaching, actually. Yes, I do hope it brings to us as well, Jarvis. Burrow says, just wake up from a coma. I had Liverpool sign. Is this for real? No, they haven't. Definitely not. So I think they wish they wanted to, but they haven't. They have to focus on getting their Dutch coach to cook, basically. So we don't want Rabbi. I'd rather sign an unknown youngster than a Michael Bolton lookalike. Yeah, he's got a. I posted my question 30 minutes ago, but still no answer. What was the question, Ilya? What was the question? I'll have a look. I'm going to go back and see. I'm waiting when asking Tom any news. Oh, any news for Ferdi Kadloglu?
Oh yeah, that's the Turkish fullback.
Yeah. Is there any United news regarding that? I haven't heard anything, but I mean, have you heard anything?
No. As far as I'm aware, it's a very good tournament. Listen, clubs and recruitment departments and directors and analytic experts, they watch these sort of tournaments. They monitor players and stuff. I would probably more toward put it that Ferdi Kadaloglu will probably be added to a list of targets the United will monitor for maybe the next 12 months. But I don't actively see it as a player that they will go and actually sign for unless they are 100% on that player.
Fair enough, Chief. Just Ilya, I hope you're still here listening. I mean, the problem is, Ilya, is that you don't put a question mark. So I think when I scroll, I think that it's just a sentence. It's not that I deliberately ignored you. It's that because you don't put a question mark, I don't know whether it's a question or just like a sentence. That's why. So next time, put a question mark, and it'll help me it'll help me just figure out when I'm reading these comments because there's a few moderators here. I'll figure out what or you could give me a super chat, then I'll definitely know it's a question. So and that will highlight it to me definitely as a question, So if everything is all in text, it can be a bit difficult. So but hopefully that answers your question if you're still here, So but yeah, that wasn't deliberate. Let's have a look. Obviously people commenting on the wing-footed players. And let's see, there's any. I think Solo says Tom McGard seems a big target, but do we have any players in mind? So I think I'll just end because we've talked a lot of players on. But what is happening with Amrabat? That's actually a good question because last time I checked, Amrabat is Amrabat. We're still wanting to make a decision from him. Is there any? Do you know what might happen with Amrabat, Tom?
Yeah, the financials of the deal mean that they can sign him for 15 million euros, which is about £12 million. that's the obligation terms that they'd agreed with Fiorentina 12 months ago when they did a loan with an option to buy. Fiorentina wanted an obligation. United insisted on an option, otherwise they weren't going to take the deal. Fiorentina, they gave Manchester United the choice of having the option. And as far as I'm aware, the financial direction of if they signed Amrabat is very good for the value of what you get in the market nowadays.
Yeah.
Signing a player at the age of, I think he's 20, he's either 27 or he's just turned 28. He's in around that sort of prime ages of what you would expect from a player. A £12 million player for 28 years old, who's 28 years old, decent experience, a campaigned international player for Morocco as well, who you could say has those leadership abilities to it, but also as a squad player, if you lose someone like McTominay, he's not a bad void to fill with. And again, like I talked about before about value in the market, it values out because it suits the sort of modelling price of what Ineos would play for an experienced player. They don't want to pay over the odds for experience. So again, if the option's there, I think from a financial point of view, it makes sense. But I question it maybe more towards a football point of view. But if they lose Casemiro and McTominay, if they replace them with Amrabat, who can fill the void of experience that you're going to lose with Casemiro, but he would be the squad player, and you bring in Ugarte, who is that young, hungry fighter sort of player, who's got a point to prove because he's maybe not been given that ceiling at PSG to prove it, or the league doesn't suit him for whatever reason, and he comes to Manchester United, then he will be that first team choice player to play as a central defensive midfielder. So, for me anyway, I think if PSG get the whole Joao Neves thing rolled up and United get maybe a couple more, I think they want to try and sell maybe a couple of players and then manoeuvre for what they want to do next in the market. I personally think they will go for a midfielder next. I don't think they'll hold on to this de Ligt thing until they can sell one of the centre-backs to open up a space for. But I think they'll just put the de Ligt deal almost on autopilot and they'll drift to it and then take control of the deal again if a spot opens up. So that's just the way that I think they'll deal with that situation. And again, with Branthwaite, I can only ever see them putting in maybe one last bid, fire the gun, fire the cannon, and if Everton don't want to knock the wall down, okay, fine, we're going to pull away completely. And the only person who I think in that situation loses that is Jared Branthwaite. Because from where I'm standing anyway, Amadou Onana, I think, is a decent player. You've got £55 million for him, guaranteed. You would have had £60 million guaranteed for Jared Branthwaite. You've just sold two players there for 110 million. That's quite good. That's quite good for Everton's standards of where they are in the league tables, and especially where they are financially speaking. And I would say that they could have taken maybe £40 million of that deal and put it towards the financial constraints that they have, and that gives them their summer budget of £70 million to go and spend. And if Everton have the right sort of people in place, I think they can go and buy a decent chunk of players for £70 million if you can recruit properly.
Thanks for that, Tom, man. I appreciate the update. I know there's some other questions, but I will flag them because it is late, guys. I need to go to bed. I've got work in the morning. So, but this has been a very, very good show. Thank you so much for watching the chat. Hopefully we gave you some more clarity. And thank you so much, Tom, for obviously coming on the show. So we really appreciate you and your contribution because it is very difficult to get accurate, clear, concise information when it comes to transfers things, especially around Manchester United, all the speculation going on. So I like how you obviously continue to keep it real and keep the community and beyond informed. So we really appreciate you, Tom, for your time. And thank you so much for in the chat as well. I want you to remember to like, share, and subscribe. Obviously, if there's anything big that comes out in next week or so, also we will try and go live and try and do a show as well to address it. Otherwise, it'll be the standard transfer show. I am working, I think, on Sunday night, so I won't be able to do it then. It's possible that we might do one on Saturday, depending on how things are. If there's obviously some actual transfer activity with United, and obviously we'll get something. But if there isn't, then we'll probably push it back to maybe next week or something. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, thanks again so much. Really appreciate everyone. Have a nice day, everyone. And cheers. Peace, peace, peace.
Peace.